What's going on, everybody? Here for segment 2 with Mike Zuber from One Rental at a Time. Mike, how's it going?
It's going well, man. I've been looking forward to this one.
I know this one. I mean, I can't believe it's taken us this long to get to this.
Yeah. Shame on us.
Yeah, agreed. So it's because we know it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the crash, how it happened. So Mike and I, if you've watched any of our stuff, I mean, we covered at least once a week in one of the 6 or 8 segments that we do together. We cover something at least once a week about how it's not a crash, it's a slowdown. If I had a nickel for every time I said it to everybody, I wouldn't have to worry about a crash ever. So you wanted to take kind of the contrary, the contrary to that argument, which is, okay, if there is a crash, how exactly does it happen? Because we know it's not going to happen purely from a housing perspective. I mean, I was sitting there watching a channel last night, just essentially I was mentally abusing myself watching this stupidity. And we all know who it is. And he's like, well, now lumber is crashing. Oh, here we go. Lumber's crashing. No, it's normalized. It's normalized because they've fixed the supply chain issue. And now everybody finally has inventory.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? Builders are going to start building again a lot more, and those orders are going to start to get placed. And now now that there's some normalcy in that supply chain, now they're going to start turning those pads into houses. So Mike, talk me through, in your eyes, the crash. How's it happen and please don't say 2021.
No, I'm just going to, no. So this actually, again, comes from our audience.
Yeah.
And they basically said, you're picking on this other channel.
Yep.
Who's calling a crash.
Yep.
And the guest or the commenter, viewer basically said, hey, you're just as focused on your opinion as he is on his. Why don't you, he didn't say this, but this is how I read it. Why don't you become him, right? Step back from your experience, your 50 years of history, you buying before, during, and after the last crash, which, oh, by the way, he hasn't, but I have.
Sure.
And why don't you kind of set it up for how we could, in theory, have the next crash? I'm like, that's a fun exercise.
Yeah. So long as we're throwing math out the window, why not?
Yeah. I mean, I could, and I will share with you the one way I think we have the next housing crash.
Absolutely.
But in order to get there, I just want to talk about how bad the last one was. Because what really kind of gets my goat, as somebody who bought before, during, and after the crash, which this other channel didn't, they're looking at spreadsheets and charts. They're calling the next crash bigger than the last one. So in order to do that, I think we need to talk about how big and how nutty the last one was, because that's a ballsy statement, right? That's like,
yeah.
Right, as someone who bought before, during, and after, who saw property values in my market fall 70%, that's a pretty crazy claim. So let's at least share with everybody what went on. So I did, again, hours of research.
And a clickbait award goes to.
Exactly. But let's just talk about it.
Let's talk through it. I love it.
So I did research hours today, because again, when I talk, I try to bring data to the table. So let's just set up how bad the last one is, because if the next one's going to be worse, you got to know how bad the last one was, right?
Yeah,
makes
sense.
Of
course. You got to know where we're starting.
So, okay. So from 2007 to 2010, we had 3.8 million foreclosures.
3.8 million. Yep.
So now let's remember, a foreclosure means it actually went back to the bank. We had somewhere between 2 and 3 times as many short sales, which meant the bank wasn't actually the seller, but the bank agreed to take a haircut.
Right.
Okay. Next, the last crash had 5 years of negative home growth, with the largest negative year being negative 8.9%.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
2008 was the worst year for housing. 20% of housing transactions, and there were 4.12 million sales in 2008.
Yep.
20% of those were REOs, meaning a bank was the seller.
Yep. And that was 4 point what million?
4.12.
4.12. Okay.
11% of transactions in 2008 were short sales, where that meant the bank took a haircut.
Yep.
So 1/3 of all housing sales were distressed, and a bank was involved in 2008.
Yep.
Okay. So back to just how bad it was when you say the next crash is going to be worse, or the next one's worse than the last one. Madera, California, 54.6% of home sales were REOs.
Oof, wow. So what we talk about hyper local market, right? We're
Yeah.
talking about markets are hyper local. So that's a market that got absolutely decimated. 54%.
Yeah. So let's just talk. If
REO.
you're going to say the market's going to crash, these are the numbers you have to beat.
That's
You
right.
have to beat these numbers when you make this claim.
Yep.
Not to be outdone, Stockton, California,
That was bad.
51.1%
Yeah.
of sales were RE. And again, that's not short sales. That's REOs, meaning the bank was the seller.
That's right.
Okay. Las Vegas, Nevada,
Yep.
61.4% of every home in Vegas was underwater. Again, if you're calling for a crash, you mean that means you have to beat 61.4% of Vegas homes are underwater. I mean, these are just crazy numbers. And again, the
insane.
channel talking about the next crash being worse than the last one didn't experience it because he's not old enough to sign loan docs. He was probably in middle school, maybe grade school. 44 to 48% of borrowers, the setup for the last crash. So this was 2004, 5, and 6. And again, the crash was 6, 7, 8,
Yep.
9.
Were they adjustables?
No, that's next. 44 to 48% of all loans were to subprime borrowers.
Oh, perfect.
And again, if you don't know what a subprime borrower is, these are people that were credit challenged. These were people that might have gotten a no answer from me as a renter,
That's right.
got a yes answer from a bank.
Do we have a number on that credit score for, is there a standard number? 'Cause
580 is
580 is
580.
right. Right. Okay. Yep. 580. Yep.
So
So think
40
about that, Mike.
Yeah.
Basically half had 580 credit scores
Or worse,
or worse. How many people now today can get a loan with a 580 credit score?
less than 5%. It's under
Right.
3%.
Right.
today.
Agreed. Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Keep me going.
Not done.
Nope. Good.
Again, the setup, why the crash kept cascading is 50% of loans that were initiated 04, 05 were adjustable rate mortgages.
Yep.
14% of those loans, or all loans, were neg am or pick a payment or ninja loans. Today, 2% of loans are adjustable rate mortgages and 0 are pick a payment ninja loans. Okay, so that was the toxic soup that set up the last crash. Bad loan structures, borrowers that got no answers to rent, got yes answers to buy.
Right.
A third of all transactions were distressed, almost 4 million foreclosures. And again, the next crash is going to be worse than that crash.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yep.
So in order to get
makes sense.
totally possible. So, okay. Well, the first step we just talked about was lending.
Yes.
Lending today, frankly, is harder today than it was in 2020,
Yes.
which was harder than 2019.
Yes.
Banks are not giving yes answers to people that should get no answers. In fact, banks are giving no answers to people that should get yes answers.
Yes.
So not the setup.
Right.
So that's out the window. Okay, well, maybe we're setting up a bunch of bad loan products that will explode in a couple of years when there's payment shock. Because again, 50% of loans last time and 14% of neg am, that could be a problem. Well, we have 2% and 0.
Right.
So we're not going to have payment shock.
So in other words, 2/3 of the market doesn't exist that used to exist.
We don't have the setup. The
what I'm saying,
foundation is not
2/3.
termite ridden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Not termite ridden.
Correct.
It's rock solid. Okay. Do you know the percent of distressed sellers today? Meaning that they're underwater or they have to get out or it's REO?
Less than 2%.
Less than 2%.
Yeah.
And again, remember last time was 1/3.
Yes. Right.
So not even close. Okay. What about banks? Again, the other channel did not experience this because they were too young to get a home loan, which I was old enough to get home loans. When you called a bank last time when you were in trouble, the bank, because they had these, they did tranches and they sold all these loans and did all these, I already forgot the acronym. What were they called?
CDOs.
CDOs. Thank you.
Yeah.
They just collateralized debt.
Yeah. Collateralized debt obligations. Yep.
So they chopped them all up. So the bank said, when you called and said, hey, Mr. Bank or Mrs. Bank, I'm home loaner 123. I lost my job. I'm in trouble. I can't make the payment. The payment's too much, blah, blah. The bank said, F you. We can't talk to you for 90 days. Click.
Yep.
Today, you call the bank and the bank says, wow, oh, cool. I'm so sorry. Go to this URL address and click this box. No payments for a year.
Yep.
Okay, well, I guess banks are different than last time.
Yeah. Yep.
So, okay. I promised how we would have it. So we don't have the foundation is much stronger. Banks are acting different. The loans are out there. So I've only come up with one way that we have a housing crash worse than last time. You have any ideas what it might be?
Massive unemployment.
It's the only answer.
Did I get it
Massive, massive unemployment. We need to have unemployment exceed 20%
Yes.
for years.
Yes.
Years.
Yes. Spain level.
Years.
Years.
Because
Yes.
again, banks will work with you. We get a spike in unemployment from right now at 5.2 to 25.2. Great Depression level.
Yeah.
Banks will, the government will come in and say, no, foreclosure moratorium, push that off for a year. So it won't be 1 year of 25% unemployment. It will be 3 or 4 years of unemployment. That is the only thing.
I agree.
And again, it won't be interest rates. I forgot that. It won't. People think it'll be interest rates. I showed you in my 50 years of history, real estate transactions stop, but prices don't fall. We have historical examples of interest rates going up 800% or 800 basis points and zero drop in real estate values.
Yeah. And to make sure people understand what that is, that's saying if today is a 2.5 rate,
it goes to 10.5.
it goes to 10.5. That's
And values
800
don't
basis
fall.
point. Right. Mike, we used math to prove that the only way that this can happen is with massive unemployment and with long-term massive unemployment.
That's the only way you get there. Because again, what you need distressed borrowers to exceed the bank willingness to pretend it's not there.
Right.
And we've already learned it's not a year.
Right.
Eventually banks will say, no, that's enough. And they'll take the asset back.
That's right.
It's not a year. It's 2 years, 2.5. I don't know. I don't know where it is, but that's the only right now we could certainly inflate a new bubble, but we're not there today. What was the real cause last time is we gave people yes answers that should have had a no.
Right.
We're not doing that today.
That's
Bank lending is harder today than it was last year.
It's much harder. We've just seen it. We've seen people that got yeses 90 days ago getting no's now, and they've had to continue to downward adjust against DTI, debt to income. They might have been a 47 or 48 before, and now they're a 43 and they still got told no. And they're like, wait, I got approved at 48 before.
Yeah. So the thing, again, we have an administration that could create incentives where no's become yeses.
Yes.
That is a recipe to blow up a bubble that could absolutely pop.
Correct.
But we're not there today.
Right.
We're just not.
Right.
Yes, you can keep screaming about housing prices.
Right.
You are being a moron because it's not housing prices, it's payments. Very few people write a check to buy a house.
That's right.
Housing is a leveraged asset.
But but let's talk that through, because what everybody talks about is this short time horizon, right? Crash in 2021. And, I still haven't seen crash in 2022 yet, Mike. Like, people are talking crash in 21 still. I'm like, you do realize it's August, right? You know how to use a calendar. Yeah. So the other thing that I was really thinking about in regards to this too is what you were just saying is this administration is the handout administration. That's what I'm officially calling this administration. The handout
I think they've earned that. I think that's fair.
So if they are the handout administration and will continue to act in the way that they've already acted, here's what I believe happens. I believe, just like I said, I don't think unemployment benefits stop. I think it's just a matter of time before they start counting that for mortgage eligibility. As a start to UBI, universal basic income. But I think the next step is this down payment assistance. And guess what? That will make every one of these crash idiots look like an even bigger idiot, because as soon as they make that public, Mike, all of our properties go up 10 to 20%.
Oh,
It's at least
weeks and months. It'll be up. It'll be
10 to
crazy.
20%, because all of a sudden people are getting access to $17,500 and they don't need to come to the table with any money whatsoever. They can literally come to the table with $0, and all they have to have is a halfway decent credit score. That is going to put a bunch of people currently on the sidelines in the game. And we already have a problem with inventory being at nationally 1.4, 1.5. Everything jumps in price. Everything goes up very quickly. And guess what? Then everybody's going to be bitching about the fact they're going to be like, oh, look, it's, this is unsustainable. Meanwhile, they lost out in another 20 or 25% of gain of their assets. And honestly, at that point, Mike, guys like us, we pivot. We say, now it's time to start selling, because this is going to turn into a bubble. This will become a bubble, because you can't inject that much cash and lower the barrier that much for all of these people to run into a market where it doesn't negatively affect prices and have them get extremely expensive very, very quickly. But it might take a year or a year and a half to work through that. But holy cow, the run up that you will have in that year it will make what we've had this year look like a rounding error. It will be huge.
Yeah. Again, I love that name, the Handout Administration. I think they've earned that. That's fair. I do see it coming. I do see prices going up. Again, I wrote about it in my book. I've done this before.
Yeah.
Unlike these other channels who were not old enough to experience, I bought into the rise and I sold it near the top because I watch my market every darn day.
Yep.
So,
hey, and that's the other thing too, is that I love talking to guys like you who are in their market every day. They see what banks are doing. They see how banks are working with them. They see how many seller finance jobs or deals they can get done. There's all of these different, parts of the apple that can be taken a bite of. And these guys that are just looking at spreadsheets and interpreting them and creating graphs off of this document, it could not be any more useless. It really isn't useless, because largely speaking, even though we talk about national numbers a lot because it's a national show, everything is hyper local. Madera, Stockton, Las Vegas, they were all 50, 60% crashes. But of those that crashed, I guarantee you a lion's share of those were bad debt products.
Oh, guaranteed. That's why we did the whole setup.
Yeah, bad debt products. And again, it will happen again, but only if unemployment, literally is above 20% for an elongated period of time. That's right. For a long period of time.
But hey, it could happen. So there, I finally figured out how the crash happens. I feel better.
It's perfect.
I feel better.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I feel like we can absolutely send this off to those channels and let them know we see the crash too.
Yeah, dude, the crash is coming.
The crash
25% unemployment for 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No. 2021, Mike. It's
2021.
It's gonna happen that fast. Honestly, and more likely, like I said, I'm watching this week because I made the prediction that the Supreme Court is going to strike down the eviction moratorium, and then the Congress is going to come up with another one that will take us through the winter. So I am watching that very closely because I still believe that's what's going to occur. So I know Mike, it's going to be painful. It's going to be painful. And that's what I'm telling people I'm just asking people, hey, are you selling because? And if they weren't selling because of that before, they might be selling because of that after. So,
oh man.
We'll see. Some people, I get it. And you know what? I'm in it to weather the storm, and we're prepared if that's what ends up happening. But is it possible? Sure.
Absolutely.
It's
The
possible.
Handout Administration. I like it.
That's right. Mike, tell everybody how they can find you, my man.
Do me a favor. If you want to know about my experience before and after the crash, buy the book, one rental at a time. And if you do buy the book, I need a 5-star review. I'm trying to get to 1,000 5-star reviews.
It's worth a 5-star review. It is absolutely excellent. It's a book that I actually have handed to a number of investors, because I think it gives a great, very common sense approach, not only hearing your story, and a lot of people learn by stories, but also the common sense approach that you take to just how you did it. And more importantly, the actual story of what you did and how you did it. It's so important. So guys, we spent a lot of time creating this content for you. Please make sure to hit the like button and check us out, One Rental at a Time. Mike Zuber and Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord, at lumberjacklandlord.com and Lumberjack Landlord on YouTube, and live streaming 11 a.m. Eastern time this Sunday. You don't have to buy a ticket. You just have to click a button. So yeah, show up and participate and ask me a question that likely will make me look dumb, but go for it. Mike, thanks so much. Look forward to talking in segment 3.
Yep.
Take care.